Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. It's a bright, crisp morning here at Berryfields, definitely autumnal in feel. And there are lots of autumn jobs we need to do now to prepare the garden for winter. And I'm starting with pruning back these shrub roses. This is Alba semiplena. It's a tough rose, and it's thrown up really quite long shoots throughout the summer. And this is whippy, and as the foliage around it dies back, it'll be exposed to the wind and will rock about. Now, the knock-on effect of that is it'll disturb the roots, especially if the ground is wet. The main roots won't suffer, but the little feeding roots can break, and next spring it won't grow so well. So by pruning it back now, we can avoid that, and also this can be its annual prune. There's no need to prune it again next spring. Just take it back by about a third, and that'll do the job. It's set for winter, safe against the wind, and also ready for growth next year. Later on in the programme, I'm going to be pruning back hedges and also planting some too. And Rachel will be planting up some witch hazel in our spring garden to give some of that brilliant colour in the new year. And Chris will be bringing some colour into the garden in autumn by planting shrubs with berries, which of course will provide food for birds as well. It's not just roses that can get wind rocked. If you've got a young buddleia in particular, it'll put on lots of growth in the summer, which of course can rock about in the wind, and that will damage the roots. So give it a bit of a prune back now, and then a harder prune at the beginning of March. Of course, if it's an old buddleia, nothing will damage it. Now, I said I was going to be cutting hedges, and there are two reasons for doing it this time of year. The first is so that it goes into winter with really crisp outline. And that's one of the great secrets of a good winter garden. If your structure, including your hedges, is clear and crisp and strong, then the garden will look good even if the weather is awful. Now, of course, we tend to take hedges a bit for granted in the garden. They're just there, or they just divide our garden from our neighbours. And historically, hedges did arise from demarcating territory and also keeping stock in or out. But in a garden, they do so much more. They are one of the most important parts of garden design. It doesn't matter what you use to cut the hedge, the technique is always the same. Take off the sides before the top. And when you do so, if you want it to be a tall formal, you've got to have a batter. A batter simply means it slopes in towards the top of the hedge. If you leave it dead straight, the top will get more sunlight, it'll grow more strongly than the bottom, shade it out, and you'll end up with a hedge that's bare at the base and also cantilevering out. So, trim it in with a slight slope, then when you're happy, take the top off. But whatever kind of hedge you have, there's a whole range of bits of kit you can use to keep them looking good. If you've got a lot of hedge to cut, you might want to use a petrol-driven hedge trimmer. The advantages are they're powerful, they'll cut through quite thick branches, and they'll do the job quickly. The disadvantages are that they are heavy, hard work to use and also very noisy. A much quieter and, more importantly, lighter option is an electric hedge trimmer, and they work very well indeed. The main drawback to them is that you can't use them if it's at all wet, because rain and electricity just do not go together. The cheapest and sometimes the best option of all is good old-fashioned shears. You can pick these up from a car boot sale for about £1, and even brand new, they're nothing like the price of an electric or a petrol-driven version. They do the job perfectly well and give you some exercise while you're about it too. Now, if you've got a large leaf hedge, like this laurel, and you use shears, you end up with leaves cut in half, and that doesn't look so good. So you take out your secateurs and trim it off stem by stem, leaving whole leaves, but also cut back to where you want it. Now, I noticed on the message board on our website, lots of people were asking, how do you sharpen secateurs? Dead easy, really. And once you've got them sharp, you can keep them sharp. This is a steel. I got this by mail order, but you can buy similar things from garden centres. It costs around about £10. I've had this for 5 years and it's still going strong. So just going round and round, turn the bevel over. And it feels gritty when you're rubbing it. And keep doing it until it feels smooth. Then turn it over. And this side is flat, and just run the steel along it. And what you're doing is removing a tiny slither of metal, and what's left behind is razor sharp. You might have to do it a few times until it gets dead right, but once you've got the edge, it's very easy to maintain. A sharp pair of secateurs is much better for you and also much better for whatever you're cutting, because you get a clean edge to the cut, which means much less chance of fungal or viral infection.
If you take a close look at your trees and shrubs at this time of the year, you'll find that they're festooned with all sorts of insects. Not just things like ladybirds and lacewings, the beneficial insects looking for shelter through the winter months, but also some less desirable characters. For instance, that. Most people refer to it as the oak apple gall. It's correctly called the marble gall. Or on acorns you can sometimes find this disfigurement, which is called a knopper gall. And down on the foliage, flip it over and you get that wonderful kind of spangling discs. They sort of break off in little plates. All of these are caused by a gall wasp, which is about 5 to 8 millimeters long. And there's over 100 species that have slightly different effects on our plants. And what happens is that the little wasp will lay its eggs on the soft tissues of the plant in spring, and then as the eggs hatch and turn into larvae, the plant, as a defense mechanism, will distort around it, causing these sorts of swellings. And the larvae will then eat the distorted plant tissue. And when it's had its fill, it will leave via a small hole in the galls. Now, they may look a little bit unsightly, but in the long term, they don't actually cause too much damage to the trees. The only effect it really does have is that, as you can see, autumn colour tends to come just a little bit early. But of course, if you want the best autumn colour, get yourself down to an arboretum. Bodenham Arboretum in Worcestershire has been created in the modern age. It's a mere 30 years old, and what began as a derelict farm, a hobby and a love of trees has become 150 acres of new English landscape. It was awarded conditional heritage status in 1995.
Ever since childhood, I've always wanted to create an English landscape. And of course, an English landscape must, of necessity, contain trees and beautiful shrubs which produce colour at different times of the year. We've planned this arboretum that we can provide the public with autumn colour for a minimum of 2 months.
It's an extraordinary display, and one of the best genus to really focus on is the acers.
Yes,
and
this
has got to be one of the finest.
And we have tried to spot them around the whole arboretum, so wherever you walk, you'll see a bit of colour during these 2 months of the autumn show.
I mean, it's so difficult to describe the colours because it's almost changing in front of your eyes.
Every day will be slightly different, yes. They kind of catch fire from the top, and the colour just kind of melts down through them as the days go on. Eventually, one day we'll have a bit of wind and a bit of rain, and all the leaves will just drop.
It strikes me that one of the real joys of planting an arboretum like this is to be able to explore the diversity of plants available to you. Not just a difference between species, but difference within one species. And the two liquid ambers here are a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. It's a classic example of seedling variation. They came from the same nursery on the same day, and so quite possible the seed came from the same mother tree. And you can actually see the difference in form of leaf, difference in time of colouring, and actually the form of the tree. One's an upright one and one's a spreading tree. We didn't plan it that way, but that's the way they've grown.
Indeed, and I don't think it's soil conditions.
Oh, no.
They're only 10 feet apart.
It's so easy to get sidetracked by all the exotic species coming in from abroad.
Yeah.
And very often I think we overlook the British native species. But how can you possibly overlook something like this? Acer campestri, the common field maple.
Its other name, which is a hedge maple, which is often used as a small garden-sized tree, and you look at this one and you kind of wonder, well, have we got it wrong?
There's the silver maple over there.
On the
which
far
is
side.
just lighting up at the top.
Reds and yellows and greens, all showing at the same time.
The whole arboretum is a hodgepodge of colour.
What of the next 30 years? Is it going to develop at the same pace, do you think?
The arboretum is planned for the next 2 centuries.
which is an extraordinary undertaking to think that far ahead.
Well, it has to be. A tree lasts that long, and one must do so. Otherwise, one will fail in one's mission.
As a relatively recent development, how do you think Bodenham fits as an arboretum within the fabric of arboreta in the UK?
I think it sits very well because it's so much younger.
With it being a young arboretum, you can plant trees and appreciate them in your own lifetime. The old epithet with forestry is you plant for your grandchildren. Well, here you can see you can plant for yourself and enjoy it the whole way through.
It really is an important lesson,
It really
isn't it?
is an important lesson.
You can actually plant for today.
Yes, I think you can plant for today within a lifetime dead easily.